If you mix ordinary table sugar with your concrete, it'll slow down the hardening time. Now, there are lots of concrete additives, and if you look it up, the first thing they'll tell you is there are better ones than sugar. But sugar is inexpensive and very easy to get. And a lot of these modern additives, concrete companies can get them, but they don't sell them at your local store. So sugar's a pretty viable option. If you look it up on the internet, it's kind of hard to find information. Mostly because, it kind of depends how much you add, what your temperature is like, what your concrete is like. So they don't give you many specifics. But I did some testing. For about 2 80-pound bags of concrete, throw in about a quarter cup of sugar. If you put way too much, it'll actually make it harden faster and weaken the concrete. And if you don't put enough, it won't make a difference. I haven't noticed it making a difference whether you add the sugar to the water before you mix it into the concrete, or if you mix it dry then add water. But if you don't have your amounts of water and everything else dialed in perfectly, you might end up using too much or too little water. So make a test batch first, think ahead before you mix it up. Another thing you won't find is just how much does it retard the drying time. Now that varies a lot. Just regular concrete varies a lot depending on the weather. Around here it's hot and dry. I'm lucky to get an hour out of a batch of concrete. After an hour you can work on smoothing that top, but it's not fluid enough to work out voids or spread out the concrete anymore. But I find adding sugar stretches that out to closer to 4 hours, which is pretty good. That's a decent work time. Why would you want to do that? Well, for me, it's because I'm working alone, and it is very difficult to do construction single-handedly. It's just so helpful to have a second pair of hands to hold something steady or take care of distractions. I plan on pouring a pad, for my shed and my house. My house is about 840 square feet, or it will be. To pay somebody to come in and pour that pad, close to about $10,000 just for the pad. Whereas the cost of materials, if I buy the bagged concrete, it's about a quarter of that. So it's worth putting in the effort. The only problem is an hour work time with regular concrete is a very small section at a time. How much is realistic to do at a time, one person? A 4-foot by 4-foot section of a 4-inch thick slab. It's about 8 bags of concrete. That's a lot of work. That might be all you can get done in an hour. But if you add that sugar, really your only limitation is how quick your back gives out. But you'll have plenty of time to work the concrete. My name is Joe. This is my channel, Off Grid Solitude, and I talk about living off grid and building a homestead and whatever ideas come into my head as I do it. So feel free to like, subscribe, and share and comment if you like this kind of content, because it really helps out the channel and I appreciate it. It's very challenging working alone. Just a second pair of hands just makes things so much easier, more than twice as easy. For example, just putting in a fence post is kind of tricky with one person if you care about getting it straight and level and everything. I dig a hole in the right spot, and then I put the post where I want it, and I make sure it's turned in the right direction, and then I personally pour a little bit of water in the bottom of the hole. Then I pour dry concrete into the hole, and then I pour water on top. Just a little bit of water. I can always come back the next day and add more, and the concrete will slowly absorb the water. Much like you've seen these dry pours, concrete continues to absorb water. And I want the concrete stiff because I want the post to stay still while I adjust it for level. I'll probably pour a pad in my shed first before I attempt my house. It's always good to practice small. I really don't need a concrete floor. Dirt floors are pretty popular, especially in sheds, and I know a lot of people like natural floors in their house too. You can just mix the soil with some linseed oil and make a fairly decent floor. But I don't believe that the mice don't get in somehow. Critters are always digging under. So a solid concrete pad will keep them out. I have a cement mixer, but I've stopped using it. It's very difficult to do one person. Sometimes the concrete cakes up in there and you spend more time cleaning it than you do mixing concrete. And it's taller off the ground, so it's harder to dump the bag of concrete in it than it is just a wheelbarrow. And it seems to take longer than just hand mixing. So I just use a wheelbarrow. I mix all my dry ingredients first, make sure it's well mixed. Wheelbarrow can be dumped or it can be shoveled out, and I get the plastic ones and the concrete does not stick, and if it does harden in the bottom, a simple tap on the other side with a hammer cleans it out, and I don't even need to use any water for cleaning, which is critical here in the desert. I haul my own water, so every gallon I save is important. Cold seams are a big issue. I don't see there's any way to avoid them when you're doing something single-handedly. There's just no way to pour a pad in one go. Or even stucco for that matter. You can't do a whole building in one go. So there'll be some cold seams. They're unavoidable, but they're not the end of the world if your project isn't mission critical. For example, if a cold seam cracks on a driveway, no big deal, you'll have plenty of cracks on your driveway eventually anyway. But cracks in an overhead beam, or if you were building a bridge or something, would be very bad, very dangerous. So if you're doing something like that, it's worth spending the money and having it done right. But things like a floor pad are not critical, don't have to be perfect. If they don't look that good, throw down a rug on top of it, right? Thanks for watching. I hope I had a few helpful tips for you, and I'll see you next time.